Hello learners, welcome back to the course on learning and development in organization. We move to the second lecture of module 11. We'll be looking more into the evaluation parameters, how we can evaluate the effectiveness of learning and development programs across organizations. I'm Dr. Cyril Issac. I'm an assistant professor at the School of Business, Indian Institute of Technology, Guwahati. So I'll start from where we stopped last week. Typically, we look into what gets measured, gets managed. So when we are looking into typical aspects of learning and development, we'll see that what we think that we can measure, that will have a certain bit of more control when we have some programs that are looked upon, not very effective, but still we get results that can only be found out by the actual measurement parameters. So we'll look into more such aspects today. We'll see what are the typical aspects concerning the learning and development measurement. So when we are looking into the second part of evaluating the learning and development initiatives or programs across organization, I would say that it caters around the typical aspects of different methodologies. And we'll start today by discussing the data-driven evaluation methods. This is a world that is driven by data. I can very well make that statement without any problem. This section of data-driven evaluation method describes how organizations can typically leverage data science and analytics to transform the learning evaluation from subjective assessment to more objective, evidence-based insights. So when you are looking into data-driven evaluation methods, we have to understand that the subjectivity is more or less done away with. Now we are in the world of objectively measuring aspects, and data-driven evaluation methods typically helps us. Let's look into some of the flavors of these data-driven evaluation methods. We'll start with what we have seen as learning analytics and big data. So when you talk about the modern learning management systems, be it the mobile apps or the digital platforms, they capture detailed user interactions, creating rich data sets that reveal patterns invisible to traditional evaluation methods. So this data-driven approach moves beyond simple completion rates. If you have gone through the previous class, you would have definitely come across the completion rates aspect. So this data-driven approach moves beyond the simple completion rates to understand the nuances of how people actually learn and apply knowledge. When we look into the data-driven evaluation methods, we have to also understand the significance of something called as engagement analytics. Engagement analytics can be understood by different ways. Let's look into this time spent versus performance outcomes first. It examines whether longer engagement correlates with better results, or if there's an optimal learning duration beyond which returns actually diminish. So this helps optimize the content length and the pacing altogether. Other significant aspects include learning path completion patterns. This tracks how different sequences of learning activities lead to job success. For example, let's say you might discover that learners who complete modules in a specific order perform 20% better than those following some alternative paths. The third possibility here is social learning interaction analysis. This measures the quality and frequency of peer discussions, mentoring relationships, and collaborative projects. So research shows that social learning often has higher retention and application rates than isolated study altogether. We also see that there are some typical mobile learning usage patterns that are relevant when it comes to engagement analytics. So mobile learning usage patterns is very critical because most of the population now have an access to a mobile phone, and the usage patterns will clearly indicate a lot about the individuals as such. So when you're looking into the mobile learning usage patterns, it reveals when, where, and how. So typically, when, where, and how people prefer to learn, helping organizations optimize the delivery timing and format for maximum impact. Now let's look into the performance correlation analytics. Performance correlation analysis will have different parameters. We'll start with the regression analysis. Most of you might be aware of this. It identifies which specific learning activities are the strongest predictors of workplace performance. For instance, you might find that simulation exercises correlate more strongly with sales success than maybe some traditional presentations. That could be one of the way in which the regression analysis can be used. Another aspect is clustering analysis. Clustering analysis is where group learns by behavior patterns, revealing distinct learning styles and preferences. So this enables personalized learning paths that match typical individual needs. So when you are looking into clustering analysis, all the individual needs are vital, they are critical. The third important aspect under the performance correlation analysis would be the predictive modeling. Predictive modeling uses historical data to forecast future performance, allowing proactive interventions for at-risk learners and helping managers make informed decisions about development investments. So this analytical approach transforms learning and development from a cost center into a strategic capability with measurable business impact. Now let's look into the cohort analysis and the longitudinal studies. Now these are some of the typical methods we use in the behavioral research also. So I want to give you a brief idea about what are the different aspects that concern or that are related to cohort analysis and longitudinal studies. So this approach treats learning evaluation something like medical research, following specific groups over extended periods to understand true long-term effects rather than just immediate reactions. So the first aspect would be a career progression analysis. Career progression analysis compares the career trajectories of training participants against a certain control group or control groups who didn't receive the same development opportunities. For example, you might discover that the leadership program participants, they achieve promotions 40% faster and receive maybe 15% higher salary increase over 3 years. So this data provides concrete ROI calculations and helps justify the learning investments. The second aspect is the skill development trajectory. We talk about skill development trajectories, they map how different interventions build capabilities over time. So you might find that the technical skills peak 6 months after training. That could be a empirical assessment, while leadership competencies continue developing for 18 months. So this insight helps optimize timing for follow-up interventions and skill assessment. The third possibility here is the retention impact studies. Retention impact studies reveal whether learning opportunities, they reduce the turnover. So organizations often discover that employees with robust development opportunities are 30 to 50% less likely to leave, providing significant cost savings in, let's say, recruitment or onboarding for that matter. Other significant aspect that today I would like to discuss with respect to the measurement aspect of learning and development is to make use of the most important, rather the most popular social network analysis. So social network analysis examines in this context the learning impact on organizational relationships and the knowledge flow, recognizing that the modern work is highly collaborative. So one word into the social network analysis that I would typically want to make here is that, let's say when you use, typically I have used this particular method in my knowledge sharing, knowledge hiding research. So you will have a clear real-time understanding of the construct that you are studying. Let's say you are forming networks based on the density, based on the reciprocity, based on all the interactions that are happening between the nodes and the actors. You typically have a clear understanding where you have a constraint, where knowledge sharing is happening, where knowledge hiding is critically being observed. So these methods can effectively be employed in something like the learning and development vertical, which gives us an understanding of a real-time scenario where typically learning is peaking, where typically learning and development is sometimes not happening, or maybe the effectiveness of the outcome is not up to the mark or as per the desired level. So this is where the inclusion of something like social network analysis becomes instrumental in actually understanding or making us understand the outcome of learning and development initiative. Let's understand this more deeply. When you're looking into the social network analysis, typically you have the knowledge flow mapping that comes in way with respect to the social network analysis. So when you talk about the knowledge flow mapping, it tracks how the expertise spreads after training interventions. So you might be able to visualize how a data analytics training program creates knowledge hubs that share insights across departments, multiplying the training's impact beyond the direct participants. Then you have influence over the network changes. This measures how trained individuals become go-to experts and informal leaders. So this helps identify high potential employees and understand how learning creates organizational capacity altogether. Then we have the collaboration pattern evolution, which analyzes whether training improves cross-functional teamwork. For instance, project management training might increase collaboration frequency by 20% and improve the project success rates altogether. Now let's look into the most common learning that we are seeing these days and how we can actually look into the evaluation of that, which is micro-learning evaluation. So as organizations shift towards continuous learning through brief targeted interventions, evaluation must adapt to measure these smaller interactions. So we'll start with the first aspect, which is application immediacy. Application immediacy measures the speed between learning and application, often finding that micro-learning has higher immediate application rates than traditional longer formats. So just-in-time learning might show that 80% same-day application versus 30% for classroom training. Second aspect could be the cumulative impact. Cumulative impact, if you ask me, it tracks how small learning moments compound over time. So individual micro sessions might seem insignificant, but when evaluated collectively, they often drive substantial behavior change and performance improvement altogether. We also see the third aspect, which is contextual relevance. We talk about contextual relevance. It evaluates whether delivering learning precisely when needed improves outcomes. So this approach often reveals that timing is as important as the content quality for learning effectiveness. So these methodologies help organizations understand that learning impact extends far beyond individual skill acquisitions to influence career trajectories or organizational networks or even continuous performance improvement. Now let's look into the comprehensive cost-benefit analysis. Every training effectiveness, in fact, if we generalize, every program effectiveness lies down or pins down to the fact of cost-benefit analysis. And training investment or training effectiveness is no different. We also see how we have put up a certain investment and how we are realizing or how we are able to get back on this investment. That is what we understand through comprehensive cost benefit analysis. So when we talk about traditional training budgets, they often only capture obvious expenses, let's say like course fees or instructor costs or missing significant hidden investments, etc. A comprehensive approach reveals that the true cost of learning initiatives, while also identifying all potential returns, enabling accurate ROI calculations that support strategic decision making altogether. So we start with a couple of different available methods. We start with the first one, which is total investment calculation. Total investment calculation is or can be done through various costs. We'll start with the direct training costs, which include the obvious expenses like course development or licensing fees, the learning management system subscriptions, external facilitators, the material cost, the venue cost. All these typical obvious expenses are part of this direct training cost altogether. So these are typically well tracked, but they represent only a portion of total investment. Then there is this opportunity cost. Many of us already know what opportunity cost is, but with respect to the learning and development, opportunity costs capture the often overlooked expenses of employee time. So if 100 employees spend 8 hours in training at an average hourly rate of, let's say, $50, that represents 40,000 USD in lost productivity time. So this calculation helps optimize the training duration and also the delivery methods. The third important aspect would be infrastructure and technology investment. This will include the learning platforms, the mobile apps, the virtual reality equipment, or even the classroom facilities. So these costs should be amortized across multiple training programs to understand per learner investment accurately. And then we have administrative and management overhead, which encompasses HR coordination time, manager participation in program design, evaluation activities, and ongoing program management. So these hidden costs often add 20 to, let's say, 30% of apparent training budgets. When we talk about the cost benefit analysis, we have to also talk about the quantifiable benefits. Quantifiable benefits are certainly productivity improvements that measure the tangible output changes, such as increased sales per representative, faster project completion times, or higher quality scores. Let's take an example to understand this. Let's say a customer service training program might increase call resolution rates from 75% to 85%, directly impacting the operational efficiency part. So when you're talking about the productivity improvement, this is what I'm trying to ascertain. The second important aspect under the quantifiable benefit would be the cost avoidance. Cost avoidance quantifies the prevented expenses through reduced errors, workplace accidents, compliance violations, or employee turnover. So safety training that reduces, let's say, accidents from 10 to 6 per year might save roughly $200,000 in workers' compensation and lost time costs. This is not a secret. When we talk about quantifiable benefits, we also look into the revenue generation possibility. Revenue generation captures direct income increases from improved sales techniques, enhanced customer service leading to higher retention, or innovation skills that drive new product development. So as an example, let's say a sales training program might generate 500,000 USD in additional revenue within the first year. We also look into the efficiency gains that we have, which measure the process improvements, the technology adoption rates, or workflow optimizations. So training on new software might reduce task completion time by 20%, creating ongoing productivity benefits that compound over time. So this comprehensive approach typically reveals ROI ratios of, let's say, 3:1 to 7:1 for well-designed learning programs providing compelling business justification for continued investment in employee development while, let's say, identifying opportunities to optimize both costs and outcomes. Now, we also look into some of the advanced financial metrics. We start with what we already know, the net present value. When you talk about the advanced financial metrics, please note, while the basic ROI calculations, they provide useful insights, advanced financial metrics account for the complexity of multi-year learning investments, varying benefit timelines and economic factors like inflation and opportunity costs. So these metrics enable CFOs and executive teams to evaluate learning initiatives alongside other major business investments using standardized financial frameworks. So when we talk about the net present value, NPV, most of the finance management gurus or financial management students or experts, they would definitely know NPVs. For the people who are not aware of it, we'll try to bring it in a learning and development dimension. NPV recognizes that money received in the future is worth less than the money received today. It could be due to inflation, it could be due to investment opportunity costs, etc. So for learning programs, typically that what is of our concern, this means that discontinuing future productivity gains, cost analysis or cost savings, and revenue increases to their present value using the organization's cost of capital. Let's take an example to understand this. A leadership development program costing, let's say, 500,000 US dollar today might generate, let's say, 200,000 US dollar in annual benefits for 5 years. So using a 10% discount rate, the NPV calculation would discount each future year's benefit. So year one benefits worth, let's say you do the calculation, you will get around 181,818 in present value US dollars. Year two, similarly, if you calculate, you will get $165,289. You can cross-check this with your own calculation of NPV. If the total present value of benefits exceed the initial 500,000 USD, the program creates positive value. So please, I will give you a homework. You go and calculate and see what is turning out to be the final amount. So this approach is particularly valuable for long-term learning investments where benefits accrue gradually over several years, such as succession planning programs or comprehensive skill transformation initiatives, etc. So the next important aspect is the internal rate of return, IRR. So any financial management student will agree that after NPV comes IRR, internal rate of return. IRR identifies the discount rate that makes NPV equal to 0. Please note, I repeat, IRR identifies the discount rate that makes NPV equal to 0, essentially calculating the interest rate that the learning investment generates. So this metric enables direct comparison with other investment opportunities and the organization's cost of capital. Let's say a learning program with an IRR of, let's say, 25% means that the investment generates returns equivalent to earning 25% annually on the invested capital. So organizations can compare this against their hurdle rate. Hurdle rate is nothing but minimum acceptable return. So when you are talking about a hurdle rate or alternative investments to determine relative attractiveness, it has to be pitched against this particular return, IRR. So internal rate of return is particularly useful for comparing learning programs with different cost structures and benefit timelines, providing a standardized metric for investment prioritization. The third important aspect when we discuss about the advanced financial metrics would be the payback period. So payback period is a metric that calculates how long it takes for cumulative benefits to equal the initial investment, providing a simple measure of investment recovery speed. So while it doesn't account for the time value of money, like in the case of the net present value, if you see NPV closely, you'll see that what is the significant aspect is the time value of money there in case of NPV. Payback period, on the other hand, offers intuitive insight into investment risk and cash flow impact. Let's say, as an example, a training program with a 14-month payback period recovers its investment faster than one requiring 30 months. I hope you have understood the scenario, which may influence decision making in cash constrained environments or when comparing programs with similar long-term returns. The fourth advanced financial metrics which I would like to discuss today is sensitivity analysis. It's used everywhere. So the technique tests how changes in key assumptions affect the financial outcomes, revealing which variables most critically impact the program success. So any case, not only in this particular case, sensitivity analysis is that. So by modeling different scenarios for factors like, let's say, participation rates or benefit magnitude or program duration for that matter, organizations can understand investment risk and identify the critical success factors. For instance, sensitivity analysis might reveal that a 20% reduction in the participation rate decreases the NPV by 40%, while a 20% increase, this was decrease, in productivity benefits only improves NPV by 15%. This insight helps us prioritize the program design element and the risk mitigation strategies. So these advanced metrics transform learning evaluation into sophisticated financial analysis that executives can confidently use for strategic resource allocation decisions, treating learning investments with the same rigor as other major business initiatives. Now, before we conclude, we will finally look into the technology-enabled evaluation. We start with the most popular one, most talked about one, the most critical one, AI and machine learning in evaluation. Ladies and gentlemen, please note, modern AI transforms evaluation from periodic manual analysis to continuous, sophisticated pattern detection that reveals insights impossible for human analysts to actually discover. So let's start with the pattern recognition. Pattern recognition algorithms analyze vast data sets to identify subtle relationships between learning behaviors and outcomes. For example, AI might discover that learners who pause frequently during video content retain information 23% better than those who watch continuously, or that specific question types in assessments predict long-term skill application with, let's say, some 85% accuracy. So these insights enable optimization of content design and delivery methods. The second possibility here is with respect to the predictive analytics. Predictive analytics uses machine learning to forecast learning success before it occurs. Models trained on historical data can predict with high accuracy which employees will successfully apply new skills, struggle with certain concepts, or require the additional support altogether. So this enables proactive interventions, personalized learning paths, and more effective resource allocation. Then you have the NLP, natural language processing, transforms qualitative feedback into quantitative insights by analyzing thousands of comments, survey responses, and performance reviews. So the AI can identify emerging themes, sentiment patterns, and specific improvement suggestions that would take human analysts weeks to process. So this capability reveals nuanced insights about learning experience, quality, and effectiveness. We also see automated correlation analysis under the ambit of AI and machine learning in evaluation. Automated correlation analysis continuously monitors hundreds of variables simultaneously, identifying unexpected relationships between learning activities and business outcomes. So the system might discover that the employees who complete mobile learning, let's say during commute hours, show 15% better knowledge retention, or that certain learning sequences correlate with improved teamwork across 6 months later. When we talk about the technology-enabled evaluation, we should also understand and appreciate the real-time evaluation dashboards. So many a time our thought process is to stick on to only AI and machine learning, but we also do have the real-time evaluation dashboards. These dynamic interfaces provide immediate visibility into learning impact, enabling rapid decision-making and course corrections. So within the real-time evaluation dashboards, we have some critical metrics like the performance heat maps. Performance heat maps create visual representation showing learning effectiveness across organizational dimensions. So executives can instantly see which departments, geographic regions, or job roles are experiencing the greatest impact, identifying both success stories to replicate and problem areas requiring attention. So this gives us the real-time understanding of both the worlds. So colors and intensity reveal patterns that would be impossible to detect in the traditional reports altogether. We also see that there is a possibility of trend analysis visualization under the real-time evaluation dashboards. What is this trend analysis? Trend analysis visualization provides interactive charts showing learning effectiveness patterns over time, seasonal variations, and the impact of specific interventions. So leaders can identify optimal timing for different types of learning, understand how external factors affect the learning outcomes, and spot emerging trends before they become significant issues. There's also a possibility of predictive modeling displays. Predictive modeling displays shows real-time forecasts of future performance based on current learning engagement patterns. So these might predict quarterly performance improvements, identify at-risk employees before problems emerge, or forecast the organizational impact of proposed learning initiatives. So this technology-enabled approach, if you ask me, transforms learning evaluation from a retrospective reporting function into a strategic intelligence capability that drives real-time optimization and predictive decision-making, providing organizations with competitive advantages through more effective talent development altogether. So in the entire scheme of things, what we have typically understood is that when we move towards more of advanced technology-based evaluation, like to put it precisely, when we move from lecture 1 to lecture 2 in this particular module, what we have typically seen is a clear demarcation whereby we are moving from more of a retrospective angle to more of a prospective angle or a futuristic angle. And this is the beauty of technology-driven initiatives. You look into any of the training programs, evaluation methods, be it AI, ML implemented, be it the dashboard based, we see that there is a real-time understanding, real-time analysis of whatever training program that's happening, that's going on. So this is where the future exists. This is where the learning and development will evolve. This is how the evaluation methods and pedagogies and methodologies with respect to the learning and development actually will evolve and will give us an insight whether this program is going to be useful for the organization as such, for the individuals per se, and for the teams if there are. So this is what the discussion would be going around with respect to the evaluation parameters within learning and development. Thank you for listening to me patiently. We'll come up with more details of such evaluation methods in the next few sessions. Also, till then, take care. Bye-bye.